Good evening, good morning. Welcome to my channel. My name is David Okun. I've been talking about the cost of living crisis. I've been illustrating the issue of the cost of living crisis in terms of various dimensions, various perspectives. This time, we are going to look at the cost of living with respect to the 2007-2008 financial crisis. It was something called the credit crunch, which started in America and spread across the globe. It was actually a crisis which is actually part of the economic system, like we have discussed previously in different videos in this program. And the reason for discussing this topic, because the cost of living crisis is very important. It's affecting many families, and a lot of people are actually going through a lot of hardship. And but I would say that people should appreciate the incident, the incident of the cost of living, and the mindset I'm inviting people to adopt is actually to look at every crisis in the world as an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to take control of your life, because we live in the world, in the modern world, where we believe the government should look after us, and the government have also said they were going to look after us. The reason the government said they were going to look after us because government took over the country to run on our behalf. So the relationship between citizens and the state was clear from the start, or should I say, it was supposed to be clear at the outset. However, things are now changing, where the government is changing the way it thinks. The government is changing the way it relates with the citizens. And we also discussed in this program that the way the government used to help us was through the public sector. And because the public sector is closing down now by a process called privatization, and this is something we need to pay attention on, because as it has to do with our existence. If we exist, we need to know the problem we face and opportunities we have. Unless we learn about all these things, we are going to be ineffective in managing our lives. This applies to children, applies to young people, applies to adults, elderly, disabled, all sections, men and women. And if you think about government policy, if you think you're talking about politics, if you think you're talking about economics, normally we think the experts should talk about it, but we also know that we live in a world where we want to express ourselves. We need to speak to ourselves for ourselves. We have a choice. And looking at the crisis, the cost of living crisis, we have the opportunity to speak for ourselves, because adversity is an opportunity to look at your life, and it's an opportunity of self-discovery, to look at your life. And if you're facing hardship, which is what we now face, which is what we faced in 2008, from the credit crunch, it affected the way we access income and livelihood. Because when the credit crunch happened in America, the government of the globe, including in Europe, America, all over the world, they set a policy of structural adjustment. The way they run the economy, the way they run society. And this led to the closure of a lot of public sector facilities, and that is why we now suffer the cost of living, because the financial crisis in America are impacted on public policy, public services. The government closed down, not only one government, the government up and down the globe, closed down the public sector, and the public sector is responsible for providing public service. It's as simple as that. I've been repeating these points over and over. This is a continuation of the previous video. So if you have watched the previous video, connect it with this, with all the other videos I've actually used to talk about the cost of living. And it is so important that it is connected. It is people you need to understand, because it is your life. The government, especially the British government, if you live in Britain, if you live in Africa, if you live elsewhere in the world, you know that the government is saying they no longer want to look after yourself. But I know the government is wrong, because the government has to look after people who cannot look after themselves. It may sound strange for me to say this, or for anyone to say this, but this is the reality. Employment is the primary income in a modern economy, in a modern world. If you work, that is where you get your income from. Money and wealth and resources. If you want to do shopping, if you want to go on holiday, and if you want to buy things, if you want to help other people, you want to do parties, you want to go to school, if you're sick, you want to go to the hospital, you need money. And this money comes from work, employment. And a lot of people are in employment. They're called the middle class, because they probably earn between 30, 40, 50 to 100,000. They're the middle class. But if you work for a living, then you are poor and you are susceptible to the cost of living crisis. I've been repeating this point over and over and over, because I want us to not lose track of this. This repetition actually help us to produce consistency in discussing the issue. We need to focus on one or two things. When I talk about economy and income, I'm talking about development, because our life is actually managed by development. We access food, energy, housing, transport, healthcare, education, and employment. Like I said, some people are self-employed in small and medium businesses. Some people are actually multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires. I am also talking about multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires, because they should take more responsibilities for themselves and for the rest of the world, because they have more capability. And if we are going to talk about democracy, which is what we have been fighting for, we have been going to wars around the world to promote, to defend democracy. We have been using political mechanisms and leadership resources to promote democracy. But democracy cannot be achieved if there is social justice, if there is violence, if people cannot access food and energy, and we cannot get access to healthcare, and we can't access transportation, we can't go on holiday because we don't have money because of the cost of living. So these are actually the problem I'm talking about, which is also not only just the problem, but it's an opportunity for us to take control of our life. It is empowerment. My purpose is actually to empower every citizen of the world. Anybody who is listening to me, this video is to empower you so that you have control over your life. If you're in debt, if you're sick, we are, because of information and technology and science and all the other resources, we live in a world now where all of us should become an expert on what our area of interest are. If you have a disability, if you are blind, if you can't walk, you're in a wheelchair because of disability, physical disability, mental health disability, be an expert on it. That is what empowerment means. And empowerment is going to set you free. When you talk about freedom, you need to have control over your life. And my attempt in conducting this program is to help those who view this to empower themselves, to implant an idea on everyone that you are your own master and mistress. If you don't take control of your life, then somebody else is going to control your life, like the government, like the super rich. We have enough resources in the world for everyone to get rich, to be wealthy. And the cost of living crisis is an opportunity for you to access wealth. And you need the right information. You need to change the way you think about life, about information, about learning. You're a student. You are supposed to be a student. That's how you access self-control. That's how you are empowered. That's how you are free. That's how you can reinvent yourself to become the person you want to be. So the cost of living is a problem, but I am encouraging us to look at it as an opportunity. Every crisis, including the financial crisis which happened between 2008 and 2007 and 2008 in America and across the globe, this is still impacting our economy to this day. And whatever financial problem we face today is associated with what happened in the past, including what happened in the distant past, like world wars, all sorts of things we have done which we shouldn't have done, wrong things. Because if we do wrong things, like fighting wars, like fighting on the street, like behaving badly, not being disciplined, we reap what we sow. If we sow a seed, we reap. If we sow corruption, we reap corruption. If we sow disobedience, violence, we reap violence. If we sow respect, we reap respect. If we sow peace, we reap peace. So the cost of living and all the other crises within the economy is evidence that we have been sowing the wrong seeds. So now this is an opportunity to change the way we think. The first seed to sow is our mindset, how we think. We need to change from negativity and be positive. Because if we get more positive vibes, if we change the way we think, we begin to think positively, we produce energy, we become stronger, our body is healthier, we perform even more effectively. And this is actually the purpose of this process. And it is challenging. It has been we have been coming now to 8 months on this program. This YouTube channel was created in 2012, but it has been dormant until last December. So now we are in August. We are about 8 months in operation. Still slow, still small. If you haven't subscribed, if you like this video, subscribe for more videos so that we can grow and and do more of this. And I believe, and you can share also with your family and friends. You can engage in discussions, in acting, and in being a participant. I need only 1 or 2 more people to be part of this process to talk to me. But if the whole world can talk to me, it's fine. There are 8 billion people in the world. By rough estimate, we probably potentially 4 or 5 billion could be watching this video. If they're doing that, that's fine. If only one person views this channel, I'm going to be really happy. And it will encourage me to share this information with people who are actually working with me. And what I need, which I get also, and I'm very grateful for everyone who have been giving me feedback and on the videos, on the channel and outside the channel, giving me advice, what they think can be improved, what they think we can do better. I'm so grateful for that. And for people who have been subscribing, remember to subscribe, because subscribing may sound like something useless, but it's probably the only way to support this channel, this program. Subscribe. And remember to subscribe. Remember to like the video. Remember to share with family and friends. Even if you don't like the video, just share it, because you don't know your luck. Because even if you don't like it, it may be your luck to see this video. Maybe your family or friends' luck. There is always something good about the product. It's a case of discovering it. So let us carry on with this process. And I'm going to look through a material to support the discussion, and also to actually promote the issue of the cost of living, which I see as a very important thing. It's a really big opportunity for us to move from one stage to another. I think it's a sign of progress that if we embrace a situation, a crisis, and use it as an opportunity, we make sacrifices. Because you get nothing if you don't give anything. You give your time to reading, to listening, give your time to socializing. If you want friends, you invest in socializing. You go to parties, you visit friends, you phone them, you have friends. And friendship is a source of happiness. So you can look at a crisis like this as an opportunity to make new friends and begin to talk about the issues and try to look at solutions. Maybe if you're in Africa, maybe in Asia, in your other part of the world, this is an opportunity maybe for you to start a business. Everybody is able to run a business. And in the modern economy, business is the primary source of income. The best solution to the cost of living is actually starting your own business. And there are a lot of information online, on social media, how to set up a business, how to manage it. And in the end, hard work pays. Hard work pays. And it doesn't matter how big or small your project is. This is the time to think. Because, we live in a world where we need creativity. Everybody can be rich. Everybody can access wealth. There's no excuse. Even the government does not know everything. The government is not able to do everything because we live within a world of limitations. It is up to us to take a situation. It doesn't matter how a situation is so hopeless. It doesn't matter how hopeless a situation is. We need to look at the bright side. And the crisis of the cost of living, the COVID-19, the Brexit, the financial crisis has created a lot of problems, environmental problems. You see fire in Hawaii, you see flooding around the world, you see a lot of problems. There is drought, there is diseases, there is a lot of problems. But you see, all these problems cannot be above us. We are humans, we are a species. See, we are at the top of the food chain in the world. So every human being, it depends how you look at a crisis. And that's why every evidence I produce about crisis. The theme of this program is crisis and displacement. You see, because if you face a crisis, it's an opportunity to move on. If you are married and your marriage fails, it means it's time to move on with your life. If you had a job and now you don't, it means it's an opportunity to create probably your own employment, or maybe to train. It's an opportunity to train, and maybe if you train, if you do the correct type of training, you may get a better job than what you had. Because, sometimes you're stuck in a good job, well-paying job. You won't move from there unless there is a crisis. Nobody wants a crisis in their life. I don't. But probably I'm talking to you now because of a crisis which happened in my life. And it is up to me, it is up to you to change the way you think. You have to look at an opportunity in every situation. And the credit crunch, the cost of living crisis, these are all crises to do with money, wealth, and livelihood. They are connected. That's why I'm talking about them. All these things I've been talking about, use it. We need to put it in our head that these problems occur. But this problem is supposed to change us into better people through training, through relocating. That's the theme of this program is crisis and displacement. You move. See, I don't know. you can be displaced because displacement is part of the crisis. And you need to manage a crisis and also the displacement which happens with the crisis. Because if you're in a job, a crisis of employment means you're going to move in the process of losing your job. You're going to move away from that employer. Either you're going to come back home unemployed, that is displacement. You are displaced from work to joblessness. But you could be a jobless person, unemployed for a few weeks or months, and afterward you're going to probably get a better job or something different, even if the money may or may not be better. But maybe it's a different opportunity, it's a different challenge, which is what life is. It increases your capacity as a person, it makes you better. It's an enrichment. It's in your life. You become a better person. You improve your capability to exist, to perform. Your survival strength will increase. So crisis should be seen in terms of moving from one place to another. Because every time the crisis happens, there's going to be movement. You're not going to stay in the same place. If your house is burnt, and if you don't die, you're going to get out of that house and go to somewhere else. It doesn't mean you're going to go somewhere better, but it's going to be a different experience. Life is about experience. Life is about embracing every opportunity, even if it is not really favorable. You use that to improve your life. Like I said, crisis is a potential for improvement, for promotion, for growth, for more income. If you are actually getting £40,000 and you lost that job, you have an opportunity to improve your life during the process of crisis, learning from it. People learn better if they are actually under stress. If you are under stress, if you are under pressure, you perform. Most people actually perform better under pressure. So crisis produces this pressure so that you pay more attention to things which matter more than to things which matter. It actually produces self-discipline. And that's why I've insisted on sticking with this program, because I find it to be very exciting. And calling on looking at the material I have, and this the recording and also the explaining of crisis generally, but particularly what we're talking about now, the financial crisis of 2007 and 2008, is quite important. It happened in the past, but it's affecting us now. It is complex, and I've taken this challenge. It involves the financial instrumentations. It involves different terminologies, different concepts, things like terminologies like mortgage-backed securities. These are not normal words. We don't use these words every day. So things like real estate, words like derivatives, and derivatives. If you know what derivatives mean, leave a comment below and tell me what you think derivatives is, because it's a form of financial instrument which is used to raise money, to raise income, to generate resources, and that's how I can explain it. And it involves assets, it involves value of those assets. It's actually a form of wealth. But I would say derivatives is a form of shadow kind of like economy. The wealth depends on something else. The word derivatives means you derive its value from a different value. If I am your dad and you are my son or daughter, if I'm wealthy, then you are wealthy by way of derivative. You derive your wealth from the wealth of your father, because you yourself don't have wealth. So that's what derivatives as a product is. These are some of the products involved in the financial industry, but they are very sensitive to changes, to crisis, and some of these factors are what are responsible for creating the credit crunch, the global financial collapse, and these actually when there's something called mortgage-backed security. Mortgage is actually the credit system for buying a property. Security is actually a form of guarantees for credit if you're borrowing something. So mortgage is actually linked to these borrowing systems, which was actually tied to American real estate. Real estate is property. But like I said in the previous video, property in this situation, when we dealt with property in this situation, we were trying to provide housing for people who didn't have money. People who don't have money are poor, and that's why I said poverty is a major problem under the system of capitalism, because capitalism is related to the market economic system, which in other words is business, private business. And normally private businesses, the private systems of the economy, is there to give wealth to the rich. So the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. That's the political outlook. Under capitalism, after the market economic system, the rich get richer, poor get poorer. So how poor people survive is by the government operating the public sector. However, for ideological and political reasons, those who run the government have changed the way they behave in relation to the economy, in relation to society. What they have done, they have decided to change the structure of the economy, reducing support within the public sector by closing the public sector down. And so now the government fails consistently to provide housing, for example, to provide employment for those who need employment for a living, poor. It's a system which is rigged against the majority of the population of the world. The people who work for a living. This is the problem. And this is why I'm trying to talk, and that's why I'm inviting people to contribute, to talk to me, because it is our life. The 90% of the population depend on the public sector. People should be clear about this situation. Because if we think we are doing well because we are in employment, if you lose your job, then you are going to be in shock. There are people now committing suicide because they lost their jobs. They can no longer, the change which occurred now has created a crisis. The change from public to private, privatizing public sector, which is healthcare, schools, hospital. If you're a parent, you're having a problem in school with school meals, with uniforms, with school fees, tuition fees, because the government has changed the system. It has is closing down the public sector. Public sector is the one which provides education, which help people who are poor. People who are poor are those who work for a living as of necessity. People need to understand, because there are people who are actually now used to the idea that they are well off, which they are, because there's a lot of wealth anyway around the world. There are people who are now used to the idea of being well off, but they don't realize that they are poor because of the way sometimes we define poverty. We define poverty in certain ways, such as to only, categorize people who are actually on the lowest income, the lower classes of people in the world. People who maybe are on minimum wage, and minimum wages are very low. People who are actually on charitable help from the government, from charities. People who are given food. In the UK, we have food bank. In Africa, we have families. People are supposed to grow their own food using land. Family welfare, social welfare, community welfare in a country like Africa, in Asia, where communities are still strong. These provide welfare system, but in a capitalistic, more individualized economies like in the West, in other developed world, there is a welfare system from the government, because these are survival line for food, energy, healthcare, housing, and education, including public transport. Every time there's a disruption in the public sector management, every time the government shuts down, every time the government reduces the public sector, it is reducing access to these services, to these resources. That's why we have the cost of living as a crisis. There is no other reason. The cost of living crisis is created by the government shutting down the public sector. We need to understand this, and that's what I'm trying to, illustrate this information. And in America, in 2007 and 8, American government tried to use private companies, private institutions, like the financial institution, to provide housing. They were wrong at policy. And they were wrong at policy because of wrong ideology. That everything should be provided by the private sector. But I already said it before, and I'm saying it again, that the private sector does not provide public service. Private sector support private businesses. And if I talk about the private sector, I'm talking about private businesses. Economy are run by businesses. There are public businesses and private businesses. Public businesses are run by the public sector. Public sector provide help for those who cannot help themselves, people who work for a living. The 90% of the global population is supposed to be supported by public businesses like education, healthcare, and other support like supplying gas and electricity and water. These are necessary. However, the government, in my opinion, is making a big mistake by privatizing public businesses, which provide basic necessities, things for our livelihood. In my argument, anything providing livelihood for people who need help. I'm not talking about multimillionaires, multi-billionaires, because they can depend on themselves. If you're not a multimillionaire, if you're not a multi-billionaire, you depend on the state. You are supposed to depend on the state, because otherwise you cannot help yourself, in the sense that the government has taken away your land. You cannot grow food. If you grow food, the government is taxing you. The government make you to pay taxes. And if you're working for a living, you are also taxed. You know, there's something called poll tax. In the UK, it's called council tax. It's a form of, they just changed the name. Council tax is a form of poll tax. It's a taxation like that are actually they are, you know, they are evidence of slavery, because you can't tax. We used to tax windows, we tax houses. I mean, if I have a property, you tax me. You have land, you tax me. You make me a slave. You impoverish me. You are telling me taxation means even if you have land, that land is not your land. It belongs to the state. So the state took our wealth. They took our land away. And in modern politics and government, the government now tells us they're running the country on our behalf. That's the idea of citizenship, idea of election, democracy. The government is saying they are actually running the country for us. At the same time, the same government is saying, no, we are running the government for you. We took away your land. We took away your money. We took away your wealth. Yes, we did. You don't have anything now. Like in any developed country. In Africa, it's happening now. People are now losing their lands to the government. The government is taking away lands in Africa. They have taken land already in Britain, America, Europe, and Asia. Any developed country, citizens no longer own land. Maybe parts of Asia where people still grow their own food. If you grow your own food, then you have your land. In Britain, where I live, in America, where I live, because you know this developed world, America and Britain is connected. Canada, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, these are all connected. You know, if you live in one country, you are as good as living in another. And because of globalization, things are being harmonized. What happened in Britain, America, in Europe, is now happening in the Middle East, Israel, Arab world, in Africa, because of globalization. And globalization features something called harmonization. So the lifestyle people live, the way the capitalism, for example, is across the globe, is what is operating economies in Africa now. Private businesses. Yeah, there are private schools in Africa. There are private hospitals now in Africa. There are infrastructural building, roads, bridges. That is evidence of globalization. Globalization is a vehicle to promote capitalism as an economic system, to promote something called democracy. But like I said, democracy doesn't mean you are free from the state. You are only free from the state if the state shuts down the government. The government is a factor within the political economy. it's a factor which actually prevents democracy from expressing itself the way it should. On paper, theoretically, democracy is supposed to free us from the oppression of the government. But because the government still exists, and we are getting more, not less, because capitalism feeds the government. The difference of its feeding the government, the difference with capitalism now feeding the current government is that even the government is being privatized. And that means private individuals in the UK, people like Richard Branson, the owner of Virgin, a lot of billionaires, Elon Musk, these are now the new rulers of the world. This is the new government. Bill Gates, okay, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook and WhatsApp. These are now the new government, the new prime minister, the new president. The more, the public equivalence of the government is now a ghost city. It's a ghost estate. It means it is now empty. And that's what privatization has achieved. In the sense that government is actually a form of economy. You see, that's why now with big organizations, you hear about corporate governance. Corporate governance is a concept for big institutions. Now they are so big that they are a government within a government, and they are expanding. And with corporatization, we are going to have less and less units of government. That means power are going to be centralized. Say someone like Elon Musk potentially would be owning the entire globe. He has the potential to buy islands. He can buy. Africans is now being bought by people with money. And this money is actually, Africa is financed by the IMF, by Europe. And the money is being used to buy land. And land being bought for development, private developments, including cities, including towns, including hotels, expensive hotels, luxury apartments in Africa. That's what's not happening. Africa is being bought by the super rich. These super rich most of them are foreigners, because it is actually foreigners who have money. There are some rich individuals in Africa. They're also buying the estates. When everything is marketized, you buy one thing from here and sell it to anybody you want. And say maybe a multi-billionaire in Nigeria. The richest one, I think his name is Dangote. I can't remember his other name. His name is Dangote. He's the richest African. The richest man in Africa is worth tens of billions of US dollars. He can buy as many lands as he likes in Nigeria and sell it to Donald Trump in America. Because that's what capitalism is. It means selling and buying straight. So this is how power is now operating globally. And it is a good thing because it's creating more wealth with technology, science, engineering. The world is supposed to be a richer place, and there's no denying of that. But that is development. What we lack, in my opinion, is the culture. Because you can give a gun to a child, to a baby of 10 years or 5-year-old. You can give an assault rifle, automatic rifle. You train a child to own an automatic rifle, machine gun, to shoot people or whatever. You give it to them, and this is your toy. AK-47, you name them, different types of automatic assault rifle. You give it to a 5-year-old. And that is what happens if you give so much wealth and power in the hands of human beings who are not ready to manage that kind of land. So my belief is that, privatization in the marketized context. Transferring huge amount of wealth in the hands of individuals is premature, because you see, culturally we are actually 5-year-olds. We are infants. That is why we are always at war. We are fighting different types of war. If you are married, you're probably fighting your wife or your husband every day, indirectly or directly. That means you are still a child in terms of your culture, because your sense of value is twisted and distorted. And this is what's happening. We have given wealth, we have given up our livelihood to children. And that's why they're behaving like spoiled children, because that's who they are. They are kids. They do not know that if you are a billionaire and a multi-billionaire, you can give some of your money to other people. If give a toy to a child and try to ask it back, give it to me, they're going to say, no, it is mine. And that's how Elon Musk behaves, Jeff Bezos behaves, Mark Zuckerberg behaves. Not because there is something wrong with them. The only thing is wrong with them, they are humans. They may be rich, they may be multi-billionaire, but they are not adults, they're children. Because culturally, they're bankrupt. And therefore, the solution to these very complex events, chains of events, is to learn to educate ourselves culturally. We have to really change the way we value our lives. We need to change the way we value other people. Respect for yourself, respect for others. This is, if we can really achieve this, and we can achieve it, because we have the capacity to learn, to grow, and to change. If we acquire new knowledge, this facilitates change. So we can change. And this is a sign of hope for me. And if you are watching this, you need to know that there is hope in us as humans, because we can learn and change. My argument, cultural argument, is that we need to learn respect, we need to learn value. Once we have achieved respect of self, respect of others, we will find no necessity to rule over other people. We rule other people because we are arrogant. We want to show off. We pay more attention to glory than to life. You see, we want more wealth. We can't have enough. We are greedy. We are shellfish. We act like children. And that's why there is a lot of chaos. And there is also a quiet conspiracy. I call it quiet because I hesitate to call situations conspiracy. Those who are in government, in the public government, are now privatizing the government, which is actually an economy. The government is an economy. It's being privatized. So the new government estate, including the government leaders and rulers, people like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and all these other multi-billionaires around the world. It doesn't matter whether they are Putin, whether they are Zelensky in Ukraine. These people are rich. And normally, if there is a crisis, they don't suffer. If they suffer, they just suffer in a different way. They suffer because they're competing between themselves. If Bill Gates is richer than Jeff Bezos, then Jeff Bezos has to really have sleepless nights. He has to have sleepless nights trying to recover his position. Because, see, it's like they're going for the glory. See, which is a form of pride. And these rich people are very proud. But don't get me wrong, poor people are also very proud. If you go to a poor person and tell them, you are so poor, let me give you some money, they may refuse. Actually, they might punch you on the face. If they're in a position to punch you in the face. Because why are you insulting me? You're hurting their pride. And pride is evidence of weakness in us as people, as humans. We need to learn humility. We have to grow up to become adults. Humility is a sign of growth. It's a sign of maturity. And if we are humble, then we are going to be better human beings. We are going to be adults. If we have wealth as adults, as better humanity with good character, then we are going to use our wealth progressively. There is no reason for anyone to suffer poverty in a modern economy. The fact that there is the majority actually of the population, over 90% of the population are poor. And the only probably reason they are poor because somebody else, somewhere else, is using violence and force to amass wealth. You see, it is not accidental that somebody gets wealth. I mean, people who get extremely rich, they have been very ruthless. And now ruthlessness is accounted as a virtue. It is not. I mean, you are so ruthless, you can kill a dog, you can kill a cat, you can even kill your child in order to be rich. You can do anything. I'm not really trying to label wealthy people. I believe some wealthy people are very, very nice people. But there's no point being nice to me when I'm going without food, shelter, energy. You're nice to me, fine, fair enough. But you have the money and I have nothing. I go without food. I go without clothing. I sleep in the elements. I sleep in the cold. I'm also poor. And I'm living with you. Jeff Bezos, I'm living with Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates. I'm not going to mention these people because I can remember them. There are so many multi-billionaires and multi-millionaires. Donald Trump, Alan Sugar, not Sugar in the UK. These are billionaires. Oprah Winfrey. Beyonce. Was it Beyonce? Rihanna, the musician, you know. And all these, some of these artists are so rich, man, they are multi-billionaires. And I admire them, I'm happy for them, but you know, these people should grow up. The government should grow up and begin to pay attention to the basics, necessity. There is no need to privatize the public sector. Nationalize it. Negotiate with the super rich in America because they're the ones with power now. They control the market. We saw in Britain how the market made decisions for the Conservative Party, for the Conservative government. Actually, there's a lady called Liz Truss. Liz Truss was the last prime minister to be removed from office. It was the market who dictated that, made that decision, put pressure on the British government to remove an elected leader from power. And then Liz Truss was actually replaced by Rishi Sunak. And the market now controls the government. The government cannot control. If you ask the government, why are you closing the public sector? They have no explanation. Because the market told them to do so. And the reason the market tells them to do so, because the government, these rich people do not want to be taxed. They don't want their money to be taken through borrowing and given to the poor. Because that's what the public sector does. It redistributes wealth. And the rich people do not want the government to take their money. They want the money for themselves. And that's why I say they are children, they are infants. Because you are so rich, what do you want the money for? If you are an adult, you are going to give some of the money to the government to develop, to strengthen the public sector, to provide energy, electricity, water, food, medicine, education, and really begin the process of peace building. Because if we allow the majority of the population to live in destitution, then we are sowing the seed of violence. There's going to be no peace, as it is suggested, no peace for the wicked. So the wicked are people who do the wrong things. They really persecute human beings. And my message to the environmental campaigner: you are doing a legitimate thing. We need to protect our environment. But let me be clear that environment is not more important human life than human life. Humans are supposed to be masters of our environment. You see, we set a government to rule over people. Government to rule over people, we should be our aim to shut it down. And if the government say they are shutting the government down, they are not, because they are privatizing it. The private government should also be shut, because you see, power simply changes hands from public to private. It's even worse. You're concentrating power. You're actually taking government from the public and giving it to private individuals who will concentrate this power into their hands. They will rule over us as private estates. They will have no accountability. There will be no election. There will be state terrorism. The level of, because these people are not really adults. They are children, and they behave very badly as people. Because see, if you're a child and there is no adult around, you're going to see chaos. And these multimillionaires and multi-billionaires we are giving money to are children. That is why they are not giving their money to anyone. They are not investing even in welfare economy. Elon Musk is investing in things like spaceships. I mean, if people are dying of hunger, of homelessness, failing to access energy, how is space exploration going to support the majority of the population who are suffering from accessing the basic necessities? How is it going to protect the environment? I agree that we should use technology to improve our livelihood, the physical necessities like food, shelter, energy. You know, that is what the rich people should do. They should invest technology in developing welfare infrastructure first, before going into space. Before trying to create humans. Some of these investors are trying to create human beings. If we are doing that peacefully, then it might be a good thing. Because when I say creating a human being, things like artificial intelligence or robotics, if you mix them with nanotechnology, you mix this together, there's potential of creating, or let's say synthetic DNA, synthetic cells, genes, and cells and organs and body. Maybe it's good. Regenerative health, eliminating aging, stopping people from dying, or even bringing life back from the dead. These are good things because they promote humanity. If we use it for medical and for welfare, it's a priority. Then we can do other things. We can play. But we can't play with empty stomachs. We can't play when we are homeless. If we are creating luxury cars, luxury apartments, these are toys. And this is what these multi-billionaires are doing with their money. They're creating toys. The coaches they drive, the limousines, private jets, speedboats. These are good things. They are very luxurious. They're toys. They are there to promote play and pleasure, which is good. But the world is suffering. The rest of the world is suffering. And you are creating a world within a world. The world of the super rich. You live in a world of fantasy, you are surrounded with people who are actually destitute. You are investing in vanity. Because if you invest in a situation where only the few has access to a different set of lifestyle, I mean, if you visit the surrounding of what you think you're in another planet, you don't think you're in the world. Go to Africa, you see the way Africans live, who are poor, in slums, the so-called ghettos in Africa, South Africa included, Brazil. You see people live worse than wild animals. You would actually prefer to leave the cities and live in the bush. It's cleaner, it's healthier living in the bush, in the wilderness. These are actually hell on earth. How can we, with so much wealth, with so much capabilities, with so much knowledge, allow the majority of the world to die? That's what is going to happen, because poverty kills. If you don't have land, if you don't have medicine, you're going to die. Because the government has taken away our land. They've taken away our sources of food, energy. We cannot access food except through the government. And the government is now closing down the public sector, refusing to provide food, refusing even to give back our land. In a country like Britain and America, you took our land and you gave it to your family and friends. You gave it to yourself as a ruling elite, the class, the upper class, who own everything. They're owning the world and they're excluding the 90%. That is evil. It's wrong, and we should speak about it, and we should really put pressure on people who are actually creating instability in the world. By practicing injustice, by practicing violence, we cannot allow that to happen, because they're going to kill us. And we are not innocent, because before we begin to talk about rich people in power, in other words, we have to actually repair our own lives. We should stop fighting our neighbors. Being poor is not a passport to being stupid. You call somebody, why is a human being a stranger? Are you insane? Yes. You may be poor, but you are responsible. Poverty, inequality, violence, death, extinction. It's a product of humanitarian failure. This must change, because it's our life. If we die, we don't know if we're going to come back. There's no guarantee of coming back. Even if you come back, if we are still violent, we're going to suffer. Suffering is worse than death. Education, enlightenment. If we are going to talk about civilization, we have to practice it. Why are we fighting? We need peace. To be peaceful, you need to take away wickedness, because there is no peace for the wicked. Change, education, prosperity, development, but culture is the true source of peace, actually, cultural economy. The two things: developmental economy, which brings us wealth and power within the physical realm. But we need a cultural economy, character, personality, good personality, growing up as human. There is a human species, becoming adult. That's what cultural economy means. We need to start investing in respecting ourselves, respecting other people. Thank you for watching this video, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And this is how I'm going to approach discussing the cost of living going forward, because it discusses everything we need to know about our life. The topic may be the cost of living, but the theme is crisis and displacement. Some people are being displaced from life to death. They are dead. They have died because of COVID-19. They have died because the failure of our environment. A lot of people died in Hawaii. Just as I speak, there's news on media talk about people dying out of war. There is terrorism. This is human. This is a cultural issue. We are violent. We are backward. We don't know what we are supposed to be doing, and this has to be changed. Change come by education. We don't need the rest of the world. If you are watching this video, start from yourself. And if you have a friend who understands peace, let us form communities of peace builders, peace lovers, because we cannot rest. There will not be peace unless we become peaceful. And if the poor people, because we are the majority, we are 90%, that is good news. If poverty can teach us logic, because if you suffer, you should use suffering to make you a better person. So theoretically, poor people are supposed to be better than rich people, because poor people suffer more than rich people. I'm not saying rich people don't suffer, they do. But they suffer for the same reason that we suffer, because we are humans, we mature, including me. That's why I'm talking, I'm actually confessing my infirmity. We need to work together and support each other and get out of the mess we created. We human beings, human species, are responsible for our troubles. I thank you for watching this channel, viewing, supporting this channel, for watching this video. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.